What is going on, everyone, and welcome to a special video that I decided I wanted to make. It's more of a beginner guide for newer players, and because we're in the middle of a season and I think early graduation is gonna be shortly, I wanted to make a video on what to do after seasons. And this is more tailored towards people who just started the game, like this is your first or second character and you don't really know what you're doing. So first of all, assuming you can graduate early, or let's say it's near the end of the season and everyone is finishing, by this point you should probably have your season pass done. Well, it's still going till July, and it's like May right now, so early graduation's like in about a month or something, or maybe sooner, and then full season end is July 6th. So let's say you have all of these things and you have no idea what to do with it. Well, first of all, on your season character, what I did personally is you get a Fugar's timepiece, which allows you to basically copy a character, all your level, your skill points and stuff onto another one. So what I did personally was I made my Dracania, which is the new character of the season, and then tagged it over to a Zerker. That's kind of irrelevant because what you do is on you. However, so let's say you have all your skill points and all your gear is like pen, for example. Mine's not, just because apparently Dracania still does not have Awakened, and I had to just hard quick make something. But anyway, let's say this is your gear. You probably have a little bit more if you are full pen, but anyway, so you're probably wondering, how do I progress into gear from here? And what is the best and optimal way to do it if you are a new player? Now, if we look at all of these pieces, if you are at Pen to Vala, it's basically the equivalent of a Tet boss piece. So, assuming you are full pen, which you should be by the end, I would not recommend graduating early until you have the best gear, because it's just easier to enhance, and it'll make more sense in terms of value, especially if you're a new player. Once you get into boss gear and non-season, the enhancing is like a huge slap in the face. I'm just going to be honest with you. Enhancing to Vala is pretty easy, and then once you get into the real world, I guess you can say, it is not easy. So training wheels off. Where do you go from here? So first of all, whatever class you play, you would probably recommend, or I would recommend to you, making sure your add-ons are all set up. Don't copy these, by the way. I have no idea what I'm doing on my Zerker. It just sucks. Zerkers are pretty good no matter how good you are. So make sure all your skill add-ons are set up. Your skill enhancements, these are your bombs. These are kind of like, how do I say that? They're not main core abilities. They're just kind of things you use when your other main abilities are on cooldown. And at this point, you should know what you primarily want to play, whether it's Succession or Awakening. Ultimately, it's not a big deal. With the skill presets, you can now play both of them. So I would still recommend which one you, or like figuring out which one you enjoy playing more, whether it's Awakening or Succession, because that will probably help dictate what priority order your upgrades are going to be. So after the season ends, generally they allow you to keep all your gear, but allow you to convert one piece of gear into like boss gear. That means you can enhance it and hopefully go for pen. Hopefully it goes up, and that'll be just your first upgrade in theory. So if you are playing Succession, generally you want to have your main weapon go up first. So I would highly recommend your main hand weapon. And keep in mind, once you're out of season, that means you could do Black Star, you can do Zarka. I have another video on like which is better. You should watch my window series, or window shopping series, and basically we look at the market on the North American server, that is. And basically I tell you my thoughts and opinions. Should you make it? Is it worth buying at this time? So leave a link in the description. Anyway, so in terms of boss gear, this is where it gets tricky. What your class is might depend, like, what kind of gear you are. So there is evasion and damage reduction. It might sound simple if you've played other RPG games. Some classes just have higher multipliers or modifiers, so going one route may not be the best for the other. If you have no idea, feel free to leave it in the comments, join the Discord, and I'll try to point you in the right direction if you don't know which route you're going. But my general recommendation is go DR for everything until you get to high end, because evasion is really good. However, it is a higher gear floor, so generally DR will be good for everyone up until you get to a certain point of you probably should know what you're doing, and then evasion is where things get good at really high end. So just as a general recommendation, DR until you know what you're doing, then that's when you swap. But that's really late game. This is not a beginner thing. So yeah, in terms of gear, the game has changed over the past few years. And in terms of upgrades, what you should do, look at the ones that give you basically the most DP or AP in terms, I guess, for the least amount of silver. That is just the best upgrade. And so if you were playing Succession, you probably want your main hand to be your first upgrade. If you were playing Awakening, you use both of them, but your Awakening weapon is a little bit better. Now, your offhand is the one where it's kind of tricky because there are PvP and PvE offhands. So let's use Zerker, for example, because Zerkers and Dark Knights are the same thing. So we have, or I guess it doesn't really matter. Whatever class you do, you have a Kudum option, which is your PvE, Nuver, which is PvP, and Blackstar, which is basically a strictly PvE. So don't worry about the rest of them. Sayer is an accuracy one, but that's not a beginner thing. So if you get it, you really know what you're doing already. So as a newer player, what I would recommend for you guys to do is really just go to Kudum route. Now, Blackstar is good, and it is also new, which came out a few weeks ago. So that means it'll be a little bit harder to get. So the Kudum is something I would recommend going, because once you hit Pen, it's the same as a Tet Blackstar. However, it is significantly cheaper to get a Pen, and by this point, if you have full Tuvala gear, you basically already have Tet. So your only upgrade from here is Pen, right? Now, the difference is you can Capra Stone this thingy, these shiny yellow marbles, and what you could do is get incremental gains along the way. So, for example, if you put in enough Capra Stones, you get 1 level, 2 levels, and so on, right? I would be very questionable about Caprasing anything that's not a Pen gear, because you would have to later on extract it, and that would be losing money. So what I'd recommend is either save or keep grinding with the Tet until you can get a Pen, then start Caprasing. Now this is where it gets interesting, because you can get incremental gains. There's tons of spreadsheets, and basically get some minor stats along the way with your Kudum. And the money you saved from not buying a Blackstar early on, let's say 3 or 4 billion silver, that's quite a bit of extra stats that you can put into your Kudum. And so basically you'll have a lot more. Now eventually you're gonna probably want to try to get a Pen Blackstar. That's easier said than done. It's just a long grind for that one. So as a new player to intermediate, I'd recommend just getting a Kudum or a Nuver or both. Honestly, just get both if you want. It depends on what you want. So once again, Kudum, PvE. Do you like grinding a lot? Cool. Nuver, do you only like PvPing? Get that. It's probably good. But some classes might be different, but just as a general recommendation, that's how it goes, right? Okay. So after that, now that you got your weapons sorted out, do you like Succession, Awakening? Doesn't matter. Eventually, your goal would be to have all the gear, but in terms of priority, which one do you think you're going to be playing more? Upgrade that. Now, by this point, accessories are something you should look into, but it is kind of expensive, and especially if you're self-making your accessories, that's even more expensive. So I would recommend going the armor route because you can get guaranteed progress. Now, they do have this thing, which is like the guaranteed pen, armor, or weapon quests. And I would recommend going the route that would help you get the most gains. And right now, the easy ones to go for, or the ones that I'd recommend going for first, is your chest piece and then helmet. Simply because they have things called the Fallen God or Libresca, which is moving up into the really late games, but it is something you should start working on in terms of Capris early on, so you'll be ready to grind the higher end spots. And so the one I would convert over from the season is probably the chest piece first. Now, you have an option to go to Dimtree or the Red Nose route. I would nowadays pick Red Nose, simply because when you Capris it, it is slightly cheaper to Capris or get a level 10 Capris in your Red Nose instead of a Dimtree. I wish they would just normalize it now. It's 2022. I get why they did it, but I mean, as the game progresses, the game gets easier for newer players. So I wish they would just equalize it. But anyway, that's not the point. The one I'd carry over, probably a Red Nose armor. And then the next thing you should work on is probably a helmet, or honestly, whichever one is the cheapest, just go that route. I'll actually go look at it right now for you guys. So, helmets. There are two options you really want to go for. Do not go for the Black Star route. That one is people who really only like PvEing and all you do is grind. If you like playing the game, just doing everything, you're either going for Griffin or Gaiath. And your eventual goal would be to get the Libresca helmet. However, this is more of an endgame item, so I don't expect you to be like, all right, 30 days from now, I am gonna get this. It could happen, but I would realistically say it's not happening for you. So things I would work on is going one of the two routes. I personally think Griffin is generally an overall better one. Evasion classes would use Heave all the way to Pen, but with Libresca being a thing now, I would not really recommend doing that route anymore. I mean, stats are stats, but honestly, I would just go Griffin. Straight up. It is overall better, and the reason why is if you look at the item effects, the stats in terms of like DP, evasion, DR, they're the same. However, the item effect is all resistance 5% versus HP, and resistances in this game, for the longest time I thought they were a meme, and sometimes I still do think resistances are a meme, but I would rather have the chance of not getting grabbed or like knockdown CC'd over an extra 100 HP. So let's say you're going this route. You have Tuvala, which is basically the same as Tet, so we'll just like skip everything out here until now. So your next goal would be to get a pen, right? And then, same as the chest piece armor, you would get it to Capris 10, and that's just a long-term goal for you guys to work on. And so that's why I would choose this as a second one. One thing I didn't really say is once, let's say you have full boss gear, right? All 4 armors. I would recommend capricing them like equally. So like, let's say Capris level 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2 in all the pieces, instead of just going like Capris 9 in one piece at a time, because it's not really stats effective, because incrementally it gets more expensive to Capris each level. So each time you get a level, it gives you stats, right? So if you do them equally instead of just pumping it all into one at a time, then it'll be better for you in the long run until you're ready to upgrade. And then once you're all like C9 and everything, then you're good to go, right? So in terms of shoes or the other pieces of armor, as we talked about the helmet and armor chest piece, right? Now we're looking into gloves. There's 2 options, lever or beg. Lever is the evasion option, where beg is the DR option. So I would generally recommend go the beg route for most people. And if your class is an evasion one, and let's say you are an intermediate player, you have more than one character already done, then I might consider the lever. However, as a newer player, you don't really know when to upgrade, so just go the beg route. It'll be a little bit safer, just in general, more damage. So basically the difference is accuracy versus evasion. And let's look at it at pen route. So if you look at these stats, we're only looking at pen because assuming you have full pen to Vala, that's the equivalent of Tet. So anything else, irrelevant. So 50 accuracy, 60 DP, but you're really looking at the evasion DR, right? Now Lieber at pen is 62 DP, but 25 accuracy. It might look better on paper. However, accuracy is very important, whether you guys think so or not. Once you start fighting people your gear and learning other classes, you'll soon realize that accuracy is more important than you think. Some classes might have more accuracy modifiers just by playing the class in general. So that is one thing you should keep in mind. It may look like 62 DP, more than 60. I should get this one, but accuracy is important, believe it or not. So my recommendation would be the beg route. It is, which one is cheaper? 12.7 versus, I think Liber is cheaper. Yeah, 9. There's a reason for that, because people value accuracy. Once again, Black Star is one of those things, like if you grind and only grind, I wouldn't recommend it. So the reason why I don't recommend Black Star, like the armor pieces, is because enhancing it to pen would be the equivalent of a Capris level 10 in a boss gear. However, that's the problem, enhancing it to pen. Unless you one-tap it, you're probably going to lose money. You're basically lighting money on fire. Whereas if you just Capris it to 10, there's literally 0 risk, and you get incremental gains as you Capris each level up. So there's that. Same with the shoes, what I just said, or just literally every Black Star armor. There's Uragons and then Muskins. Uragons is the DR version. Muskins is the evasion. Same as what we talked about previously. On most classes, I would recommend just going the Uragon route. Evasion is a little bit cheaper because it's not beginner to intermediate level friendly. If you see people telling you, oh, evasion's good for this class, it's probably because it is at very high end levels, assuming you are not a beginner. So I'm not really here to tell you what to do. You can do whatever you want, but I'm just trying to point you in the effective route as a beginner to intermediate level player. So ultimately, if you're like coming out of seasons and you decide you want to pick a fight with someone who's like 300 AP, it doesn't matter what gear you have, you're getting destroyed probably. So in terms of like grinding, and just PvE, for me personally, I found that DR gear works a little bit better at high-end spots than evasion. So, like, if you get clapped by something with evasion, your health is just getting chunked. If you don't evade it, you're probably dead. So at least with DR, it'll give you that extra second to react to it, and then you might survive. But ultimately, DR until you know what you're doing. That's just my general rule. So, we talked about the weapons. Like, I'll just go over it quickly. But I would recommend watching my window shopping series if you want to know more in depth on like what you should do. There are 3 options. There is Black Star, Zarka. Actually, there's 2 options. If you get Often, you're probably doing something wrong. Like, there is a small window when Often is effective, or more effective than Zarka, but the amount of money you would be investing and then losing it later when you resell it to upgrade is not really worth it, in my opinion. So if you want to go to Zarka route, you can Capris it and then get incremental gains, or you can just go straight up Black Star, because main hand weapons for Black Star, you could honestly just buy them. So yeah, depends on what you do. This is more for PvE, but once they're like hard capped, which is not a beginner thing, they're roughly the same, but Black Stars will give you more monster damage. Same with oh wait, we just looked at sub weapons earlier. Awakening. Two options: Black Star, Dandy. Dandelion is the Capriciable version. Black Star is the grinding version, PvE. Up to you, ultimately. Black Star is an option. I think eventually your endgame goal would be to get the Black Star, but ultimately, if you get a Dandy, it's not a big deal. Now, accessories is where things get kind of weird, because generally my recommendation would be just get the most amount of AP for the least amount of money. But as a really real short, like beginner to intermediate level, Crescent Ring is a budget option. It's not bad. It's just eventually your goal would be to upgrade. So if you are looking into getting like 10 accessories, a Crescent Ring is not a bad option. It still gives you more stats. However, the reason why I say this is budget is because it just gives you the AP. It doesn't give you any benefits along the side of this. Whereas, for example, okay, so a Tech Crescent, 5 billion silver. Not bad. Tet Eye of the Ruins, almost 7 billion. Why is that so much? Because it has the same AP, but it gives you an extra 100 HP. Now, it is good, but it's also one of those upgrades you get like once you have everything else already. So 2 billion silver is quite a lot for a new player. I know a lot of people forget that, like, oh, I could make 1 billion silver in an hour or two. If you are a new player, that does not happen. You're not grinding at the higher end areas. So Crescent, Pen Crescent, not a bad deal. Things you could also do is there's a guaranteed pen accessory quest. It's like, it's gonna take you 3 months of doing dailies. That's it. There's no real way to skip it. It's just doing 3 months of dailies. And Crescent is not a bad option. You also get the option to transfer it. So once you do the quest, you have multiple options of getting a Crescent, Tongrad Earring, or Narc Earring. And I think if you are a beginner to intermediate player that doesn't have like 18 characters, then Crescent is okay. Narc Earring is also okay. But would not really recommend the Tongrad Earring. And then later on, as you figure out what you're doing, Tungrad and Ominous, Eye of the Ruins are also good choices. Going into necklaces, Leighton, Ogre, and Tungrad, they all have the same stats. The difference is Tungrad has Black Spirit Rage, and basically your 100% ultimate basically will have a higher cap. It is also a little bit more expensive, but ultimately when it comes to Ogre and Leighton, just get the one that is cheaper at the time, because they're exactly the same, but two different items. Endgame, once you start moving up, you might start grinding for Deboreka. This is kind of really late game though, so I wouldn't really recommend it. Even now, it's kind of hard to get. And then there is a lunar necklace, which is your accuracy option. So another one of those, you kind of probably already know how to play your class and you know what you're doing by this point when you're looking into upgrade. So until then, Ogre, Leighton, Tungrad, your go-to. You'll be fine with those for a very long time. Just get the one that's cheaper at the time. Earring. Distos and Dawns are the exact same thing. This is just coming from the dungeon one, and this one is from grinding. My recommendations are either one of two options as an intermediate level player. Distos or Narcs. Narcs are the hybrid one. This one is full glass cannon one. Most people you talk to or see will probably be running either Distos or Narcs. Dawns are the accuracy option. It is pretty good. It's also something that you already know high-end level. You already know how to build your character at this time. So until then, you might have Tungrad earrings, depending on where you grinded. I would recommend just not going for these and just saving up Distos at this point. You can grind Distortion earrings at Star's End, and that's like, what, 260 AP? So, honestly, it's not that bad. Or just grind Save Silver. The prices have been a little bit wonky for them, but let's say you are moving up. I honestly think that earrings are the last piece of accessory you should be going for. I think you should be going for rings first, then your necklace, then belt, then earrings. However, again, as I said before, whichever one gives you the most gains for the least amount of money, you do that. So now that we covered basically all the gear, again, I probably skipped a few things, so if you have any questions, feel free to leave in the comments. I'll happily answer them. Now, later on things you may be wondering, what are these artifacts? What kind of Alch Stone should I use? This is where things get a little bit tricky because there are a lot of artifacts. So the most beneficial things I see people using is either full AP. So let me just show you, for example, this character has some melee AP. You look at the item effect at the bottom. If your character is melee, you have a melee option. Then there's evasion for a special evasion DR builds. Let's see, for other things, there's magic damage against monsters. There's basically a lot of artifacts. It's hard to recommend what you want to do. So the things I see most people doing, if you are a PvE grinder, extra damage against monsters, or if you're grinding newer spots that you're not familiar with, damage reduction, also good. If you are just too lazy to do or swap out every time you're doing everything, one thing I would recommend is just going either magic or melee AP, depending on your character. And if you do PvP a lot, accuracy artifacts are a good option as well. But it really comes down to the light stones. It would take me a really long time to explain optimal sets for every character in terms of light stones. So what I'd recommend is looking up a guide or something, or like a spreadsheet, and look at all these light stones and figure out what might be the best for you. I might make a special video separately, just going over everything and trying to do my best. Even then, it would take a really long time. So it's one of those things you kind of just have to look up and like figure out, this works for me. This is my play style. And yeah, so there's a lot of weird combinations. And in terms of alchemy stone, your ultimate goal would probably be a Vel's Heart. This is the one where most people go. If you have anything above like a Splendid, you are a very high-end level player and you know exactly what you're doing. But let's just say you're cruising through the game. Your ultimate goal would probably be a Vel's Heart. Yes, it is expensive. Things you could do in the meantime are Sharp Alchemy Stones of Destruction, which are not bad. Keep in mind you do have to recharge them, so if you just want to use the like Spirit Stones for a while, it's not bad at all. That would be my recommendation. Just use Spirit Stones until you like really know what you're doing. Reason for that is because destructions or like alchemy stones, recharging it in general is kind of expensive, so you kind of have to commit to something. So I have basically a Resplendent or Protection Stone, a Vel's Heart, and a Khan's Heart. They are expensive, but it's kind of because I play or do a lot of stuff in the game. But if you focus it and narrow it down, I know as a newer player or intermediate level, you're more focused on upgrading one thing at a time. So money is important. That's why I would recommend narrowing it down. Generally, I would say just when in doubt, AP that helps you grind better. Anything that allows you to grind better, cool. If you PvP, there's a good chance this helps you as well. So yeah, there's the thing. And now when it comes to crystals and everything, crystals are hard to recommend. Generally, there's a lot of people that use, like, all classes use the same crystals. So let me just run it down real quick. Main hands. You're going to want to use... there's two options. Elcars. These are actually really cheap now, and the fact that you can buy them is very good. So, 100 mil, I would recommend going Elcars. It gives you accuracy and ignore all resistance. That's good. This is probably the lowest price I've ever seen Elcars, so now is like the best time to buy them up. If you are budget, and these are the same things as Elcars, however, they give 4 less accuracy per crystal. So these are not bad choices, especially if you don't want to spend 100 mil on each of them. So eventually you do want to get Elcar, but precision is a good starter. Subweapon. There's a lot of weird choices for this one because it really depends where you are at, but I would recommend Corrupted Magic Crystals. They allow you to grind faster for pretty much every class. But if you are, yeah, these are probably the cheapest I've ever seen them. So I personally use Corrupted Crystals on both my Kudum and Nuver. So I would just recommend get these. There are other options like Crit Crystals. These are the very budget options that if you just want more crit damage without... Well, this one is a slightly better one, but this one is just cheaper. But yeah, I think just most classes in general will use Corrupteds, or if you're doing Rebellious, that's just more HP stacking. If you're doing some special PvP builds, there's also options for that. Awakening Weapon, there's really two options. Do you want to PvP, or PvP, red, or do you want to PvE? Now these, putting him in your awakening weapon does require Garmoth's Heart, which is one of those kind of sketch things that you probably won't get as a beginner. So if you don't worry about it right now. Helmet. Beginner to intermediate level crystals, what would I do? Harpias are good for evasion, but it's not something I'd recommend for early on people. I have Harpias for the extra human damage, but I also have my build spec for PvP. In my helmet, what I used to do before that is I went to versatile, and there are 3 options. These Hooms, Macalods, and Gervish, these are basically crystals you can put into any socket. So I put 2 of these in my helmet because these are just more like survivability, which is pretty important. So when in doubt, just put those into your helmet. Now, what did I do for my armor? There's really one option that literally every class uses. Sometimes I see special builds, but those are like really high-end players knowing what they're doing. So I've seen people do Cobalinus crystals, but most people do, where is it? Special evasion. Yes, this thingy. These are the ones you want to use because if you try, this is the best in slot right now. It's basically a special evasion crystal, but with an extra 100 HP. The chances of you getting this is really low, even for endgame players, it's pretty low. So there's a higher chance of you being able to get a special evasion crystal, even though there's 17,000 orders. Kind of wild, but these are pretty good. So, and they're cheap, so keep an order on for it, or you can just grind it somewhere. Gloves. The general go-to for literally every class is probably Jin Vipers, because it gives you accuracy. Now this is your best in slot option, but generally a Viper in general would be good. So like if you can't get it, try to buy one of these until you can upgrade. The reasoning why is because you're going to be getting the accuracy. Now keep in mind, which one you buy depends on, like, are you a caster or are you a melee? Because attack speed and cast speed are 2 different things. Now, keep that in mind, but make sure to buy the right one. I have seen people do RBF crystals for the extra human damage, but that is, you are strictly PvPing if you have them. Now, shoes, there are a few options. I personally have adamantines in mind for both PvP and PvE. Knockdown resist and more resistances. For the longest time, as I said before, I thought resistances were a meme until like a while ago. I still think they are, to be honest, but if I get knocked down one less time and that means me surviving in PvP, that's worth it for me. History crystals, you're doing it for the extra human damage, PvP option. And there are a few other, like, those are the general 2 that I see people using. But if you don't want to use these, what you could do is the Whom route. And there is a 2 set and a 4 set for this one. So you could just read the tooltip for that. So for the longest time, I had basically 4 Whoms in there. And more survivability in general is just a good thing. So that's crystals in a nutshell. But ultimately, get whatever you can get. Make sure to put crystals in your gear, even if they're not like the best ones. You can always extract and upgrade. So yeah, that's a lot. So I guess one more thing we can go over before it, now that we talked about gear. What do you do after you graduate from season? Ultimately, this is a sandbox game. You go do whatever you want. But I think after season, you end off finishing the Medaya quest line. And then after that, what you could do is grind in the Kama area for levels and skill points. You could also grind Ackman and Histria. I think those are also places you can be with your current AP. So I think if you graduate with full pen and everything and have some decent artifacts, you'll be ready for a lot of I think you'll be ready to grind a lot of spots in Valencia, like Ackman, Histria. You make some decent money now at Fogan's. It's like not a bad spot. So you could do that. I would be very skeptical of Star Zen, but I think it's possible. Like with a little bit more gear after you graduate from season, and you could probably do Star Zen. Keep in mind that this place is kind of hits hard, so you want more DP than anything. So yeah, I think this is also an option. I don't really know. I think the new winter region area is kind of tough. But things you could do, like other side projects in the meantime, not necessarily the most money, would be you can grind the infinite potions. So basically these things, like the spirit essence, and all that stuff. So like these are infinite potions. You have potions that you never have to worry about buying again. It is a commitment, but it is one of those things that it's a good thing to go for, because it's just one less problem in this game that you'll ever have to worry about. So with that said, yeah, there's a lot of projects you could go for if you feel like you want to just start life skilling. Get a life skill tool and just go at it. If you want to do ocean content, there's a lot of stuff to do. It would take me literally hours to explain ocean content, but I do have some videos you can check out of anything in the ocean, so just go search it up on the channel. And yeah, we can talk about those in another video. But ultimately, after you graduate season, what do? Just go exploring. Go find spots you think you can do. Go grinding. Go life skilling. Just go explore the entire map. I know there's a lot of stuff on the screen. You're just like, what is that? If I were a new player and I was just like, what is that? And I'm like, no, I have no idea. But yeah, I would recommend playing through the story at least once. It's not bad. There's a lot of projects you can do. But we talked about gear and my opinions on how to progress. In a nutshell, TLDR version, most stats, least amount of money. So yeah, that's about it. This is assuming you are in a guild. If you are in a guild, go find a guild and just keep grinding. That's about it. Figure out how to play your class. Try both Awakening and Succession, but I'd recommend you're probably at the point where you know which one you want more. Yeah, so figure out your build, go PvP, PvE, go grind, do whatever you want. But hopefully this video helped. If it did, drop a quick like on the video. If you're new as well, hit that subscribe button. I'd love to see you guys come back. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with more stuff.